Don't ask yourself if it's the right choice. You make the choice and then you make it the best choice you've ever made. It's not, is it the right choice? Is it the wrong choice? You make the choice and you make it the best choice you've ever made. And I don't care if you're woo or not, like truly there's science that now backs this, that like everything is that energy and people can feel your energy without you even saying anything. If you create content from the place of, I am so grateful that I get to do this, it's magnetic. That is magnetic energy. And your audience and your leads and your customers and people are drawn to leaders with that energy. Embodied CEOs don't chase trends. They pave the way. They lead from within, moved by purpose, unshaken by noise. When you are the source, you do not need permission. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. The other day I was like, wow, we're almost to the end of quarter one. And I went back to my goals that I set for the year. I have this really cool notes in my phone that's just like the 2026 reality creation. That's what I called it. And it has the different kind of categories in my life: business, health, family, personal growth, and some simple. I didn't overdo it. You know, each one has maybe like 5 to 10 points in it. And I was like, am I on track? Like, what have I not thought about in a while? And what do I need to put some energy into? What's going well? So that was fun. Can't believe it's already almost the end of quarter one already. And at the same time, like, time is just so weird. Sometimes it feels like it's flying by. Sometimes it feels like it's going slow, but then you look back and you're like, wow, it's already been a month. I don't know. We are experiencing some really exciting growth inside of the company, hiring like multiple roles. We brought on, I think, 3 or 4 new team members in the last 30 days. Just really exciting growth that I am so grateful for. And I'm going to talk about more like what's working, what's not working, what we're doing, and kind of what unlocked the growth. But it feels like something just shifted, and I could feel it going into this year. I was like, this is the year, because I've grown the last several years, but it feels like it's been a lot slower than I wanted. And it was like unlocking that, like how to get past the $3 million a year mark. And we have, like, I know for a fact we have done that, and like this is the 8-figure path. So that's really exciting, and I am just overflowing with gratitude for my team, for the clarity that I've had that led to kind of decisions we made to make these shifts. And they weren't massive shifts, they were just like little tweaks over time that eventually kind of like clicked in place. And I think that is also just business, right? To our amazing clients and all of these new clients we get to work with and bring on to support in our offers. So I'm super excited. In today's episode, there's 2 things I wanted to share with you that are just top of mind that I think are really good lessons I want to expand on here. So one of them is, I recently had this experience where I had several calls in a week. We are doing, in one of our promotions, we did a bonus where people get a one-on-one call with me. And so I did a bunch of strategy calls over the last few weeks with a bunch of different people. And one thing I noticed, and I definitely am not saying this to be like rude to anybody, but one thing I noticed is the energy that somebody shows up with on a call matters so much to the tone of the call and how the person, like me, receiving the call and the experience that I have. And it got me thinking about the energy that we show up with in our business, especially when it comes to like creating content, hosting a webinar, speaking with potential clients or clients, like anywhere where you show up, everything is energy. Like people can feel that. And I don't care if you're woo or not, like truly there's science that now backs this, that like everything is that energy and people can feel your energy without you even saying anything. And so this got me thinking about how this impacts results in marketing and how this impacts results when you go to create content, when you go to have some sort of connecting experience with your ideal customer, and how intentional you have to be with this. Obviously, you want to be who you are. And if you're a more high energy person, you're going to be a more high energy person. But really going into anything you're doing as a CEO, as a leader, and leadership shows up in your content, it shows up with your team, it shows up any place that you are. I mean, I think anywhere in your life, if you choose to be a leader, like I could look at my life and say like there's leadership across the board. But when you are on the path of being a leader, you impact others. And so your energy and containment of emotions, or intention behind emotions and intention behind the energy you choose to show up with, matters so much. And I think it's something like that is a responsibility of a CEO and of a leader to keep themselves in check in how they are showing up. So let me dive into this. If you are somebody who, let's say you are in a frustrating season in your business, things are not working and you've tried a lot of things and you're feeling defeated, whatever. Okay, you're in that energy space. That's valid, right? You deserve to have a container and a space to experience those things and let yourself process and feel those things. But when you leak that energy out into your content, into your conversations with potential customers, with team members, with on a webinar, when you leak that energy, people feel that. And it is not a good experience for them. Now, I am in no way saying you should, suppress your emotions and not be honest and not be authentic. However, I know from experience that a lot of times how we show up and the emotion we show up from can also be a choice. You can make a decision, right? You can be faced with a season of challenge, a season of exhaustion, a season of burnout, and you can say, I still choose to show up from a place of gratitude. Maybe I'm also tired, but what does it look like for me to show up from a place of gratitude, from a place of excitement to serve my audience? And so I had this experience with this individual who loved them. They were super sweet, but their energy on the call was very negative, not towards me at all. Very happy to be on the call, very happy to get strategy, but towards their business. And it was like, I should be making more money than I am. I've been at this for a long time. And just a really down energy. And I could handle it, right? Like I was fine. But it made me realize, man, if you're going and creating content like this, if this is how you communicate on webinars, if this is how you communicate when you're talking with potential clients, I guarantee you that's impacting your results. And so this is where it becomes so important for you to say, who is the CEO that I'm going to choose to be? Who is the person? Who do I want to be when I create content? And I'm not saying don't be authentic, but there can be intention behind it. So I think it is a skill set that is sometimes easier than others, but is a necessary skill set that you can learn, that you have to learn if you are in a leadership position, if you are in a business, CEO position. You cannot let external things impact your internal state to the point that it leaks out on other people. I think I saw a video from Layla Hermosi talking about this too, that she had to learn over time when it was appropriate to show emotions to her team and when it wasn't. Because she said if she showed that she was stressed, if she showed that she was frustrated about something, they felt that. And the reality is, as a leader, people feel it more intensely because you're the leader. And so if the leader, it's like being a kid, and it's like if your parent is frazzled and stressed and chaotic, you're definitely, as the kid, going to also be that way because that's your leader. You're like, wait, you're supposed to be the stable one, and now you're not. And so I don't know what to do with this. And, I've had to learn this too, where like you can have a stressful season, a bad day. You could have something happen at home, whatever. You have to have containment for that, not in a suppression way, but in this is how I'm choosing to show up. And there are days, and I remember Joe Dispenza talking about this, and I loved it because I love looking at him as a leader too. But, there are days when it's like, I know that I can't show up to my best because of whatever. Maybe it's an external thing happening, totally irrelevant to business. Maybe it's something in the business and I have to process it, and I'm frustrated and I'm operating from fear, or I'm, scared. I know that I have to process that myself before I go and show up for my team. And so there are times where I've moved meetings, or I've said, hey, I need an hour. I need an hour because I'm going to process this and choose how I'm going to show up. And Joe Dispenza told this story of how, like, when he's found himself he's overwhelmed, he's stressed, he gets in that like chaotic energy and he's got a meeting, he will literally, tell the people on the meeting, like, I'm going to need a minute. I can't come yet. And he will, whatever his process is, I'm sure meditation, sit himself down and bring him back to center. That is your responsibility, nobody else's responsibility. And my point behind this being like, I had this realization of, oh, they don't even realize how this is impacting their content and their actual results, because people can feel your energy. And so you have to be intentional and ask yourself the question of, how do I want to choose to show up? And I have had many days where I feel the spectrum of emotions: fear, frustration, anger, sadness, exhaustion. And I pause in the morning. I have my meditation practice that brings me back to center, but I will have a conversation with myself that's like, this is how we're going to show up today. And I'm not validating where I'm at. I actually first accept, like, okay, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling mad. Like, I actually sit with that in my body. But then I go, and we will choose to show up this way today. And it's and one of the fastest ways, I think, to get back to center, honestly, is gratitude. I mean, it sounds so simple, it sounds so overrated, but it always works for me. Because even when I find myself like feeling like I'm in the hardest situation, or, oh, poor me that this happened and this is so terrible and this person did this to me, or whatever it is. Even when I find myself in the hardest of the hard situations, I can still find gratitude. You still can. I can find so much gratitude. And the moment I really tune into that gratitude, it changes my entire energy, because it's like, the other stuff doesn't even matter. Like, it's just part of it, So I say all this for you to think about, if you were to zoom out and witness yourself on Zoom meetings, showing up for your team, showing up for your audience, creating content, even with yourself, like even by yourself in your office, what is the energy and the person behind that? Like, how are you showing up? Because if you show up and you're like, my business isn't working, I'm so frustrated, I'm so overwhelmed, everybody needs stuff from me, this is too much, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what reality you're creating? That's where you're putting your attention. That is going to continue to be your reality. If you want to show up as the constantly overwhelmed, frustrated, tapped out, exhausted, defeated, frustrated at not getting results person, keep focusing on that, and then keep letting that bleed into your conversations and into your energy with people making content by yourself, and that will be your reality. And this is the thing that's so empowering, and it triggers some people because they don't like that they have the power over this. But when you realize this, when you realize that the way that you show up, the way that you choose to show up, the way that you choose to see the world and the world around you, the way that you choose to see your business, choose to see your clients, choose to see your team, has a direct impact on your everything around you, which means you create your reality, which means if you don't like your reality, guess whose fault that is? And guess who also has the power to change it? And it's the most empowering thing. But oftentimes when you put that mirror in front of people, they don't like it, because it's way easier to blame external circumstances. It's way easier to blame clients, team, the economy, you name it, and say, this is why my business isn't working. This is why I'm frustrated all the time. This is why I'm tired all the time. My husband doesn't do enough, and that's why I'm tired all the time. Again, I'm not saying there aren't valid frustrations that you can have in relationships with people and expectations you get to hold with your team, you get to hold with your partner, all of those things. But it doesn't have to impact your energy, and it doesn't have to impact how you show up in all the areas of your life. And so my invitation to you today is to think about, if you were to become an observer and think about yourself in the last week. Observe yourself on meetings, creating content, showing up for clients, with your family, with your friends. Observe the way you are energetically showing up, the thoughts that you have, the things that you're saying. I will talk to people who say, like, I just hate my team. I don't trust them. they're not smart, they're not as good as I am. Like, I hate building a team. And it makes me cringe when people say that, because I actually used to be that person a long time ago. When I first started building a team, I was always frustrated with, why can't people do it as good and as fast as me? But when I started looking in the mirror and saying, well, who's the one who hired them? Who's the one who trained them? Who's the one who set the processes, who set the expectations, who's communicating? So the only person that I can blame for feeling that way is myself. Now, obviously, you want to hire the right people. But how do you think your team's going to feel, whether you say it directly to them or not? How do you think your team's going to feel if you hate them or you're frustrated constantly with them? You find the gratitude. I will sit there and go, if something happens and I'm frustrated with a team member, which for sure it happens, I will contain myself and sit there and say, we're not communicating until we find the gratitude and we find the empathy, and we still set the expectations, right? There's still expectations. I have very high expectations for my team. I love my team like so much, and I am so proud of them, and I'm so grateful to them every single day, because I recognize I could not be doing what I'm doing today without them. And honestly, like, growing a team is the hardest thing because it will challenge you every day as a leader. It's also the most rewarding thing. So anyways, think about how you show up. I also have seen people go like, I'm so frustrated with my clients. They're always asking so much of me, or, they're not doing the work, da, 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 da. And again, if you show up with that energy, do you think you're going to attract more clients? Do you think your clients are going to want to keep working with you? People feel that. So your language, your thoughts, even if you're not saying it directly to them, if it is leaking in your energy, it is coming through. And so when I had this experience, it made me realize how important it is to really be intentional behind the energy that you have with your business when it comes to creating content. Because if you are coming from a place of frustration, lack of gratitude, oh, this isn't going to work. Why am I even doing this? I've already done so much of this. I don't want to create this content. I'm telling you, if you go create content from that place, you better just already plan that it's not going to work. But if you create content from the place of, I am so grateful that I get to do this, and I am so committed to this process, and I'm going to show up from love and from joy and from excitement to be here and to be able to do this and have this opportunity, it's magnetic. That is magnetic energy. And your audience and your leads and your customers and people are drawn to leaders with that energy. But what's at the root of that is the ability to self-contain, self-regulate, process, and know when it's like, I need a minute. I'm not going to be able to show up at my best. And again, like, also showing up at your best doesn't mean everything's great in your life. I think for sure are there times that a lot of things happen in life and people need to take a step away from the business. But I have had many things happen in my personal life that I've had to set aside right here, decide how I'm going to show up for the day, and show up. And then go, okay, tonight at 7:00 after we put the kids to bed, we can come back to this. And that's actually a strategy. I was talking to my friend who, she's a therapist, and she said, I tell my clients this all the time. Like, when you're processing a lot of grief, or you're processing something like somebody passing away or a divorce or something really heavy in your life, you actually tell yourself, like, no, we're not going to think about it right now. We're not going to dwell on that. We're not going to analyze that right now, but we can tonight at this time. So you have like containers for that. And I'm like, I love that, because I think it allows you to process and not stuff things down while also still being able to, function and show up in your life. And if you are choosing the path of a CEO and a leader, then you have to do this. And I think this is important for everyone. There are always those people that it's like something's always wrong in their life. Those people where you talk to them and every time you talk to them, there's something they're complaining about. It's not nice to be around those people. I have people that are acquaintances, I would call them, like kids, friends, parents or something, and they want to go to lunch with me and they want to hang out with me. And there are people that every time I'm around them, there's something that they complain about. There's something that they're complaining about that isn't going well. And usually they find some mutual thing that I can, relate to, the soccer league or whatever. And they'll ask me to go to lunch. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I will not put myself in that space, because for me, it's just a waste of energy. It's like a suck of energy. And I don't want to be in that environment. And so if you are doing this in your content or with your team or with your clients or with anyone, that's their experience. So that self-containment, that self-regulation is so important as a leader, and really learning that skill. And again, it doesn't mean not processing things. It just means having the skill of regulation so that you can show up, and this, I think, becomes more and more important the bigger the company you have. The second thing I wanted to say, it's kind of related to this. It's not enough for a full podcast episode, so I'm just going to talk on this because it has to do with kind of like making a choice and how much power we actually have. And I think that is something we frequently forget, is we give away our power to other people, to external circumstances, to what is happening around us, as if that gets to dictate our internal state. And it doesn't. We get to dictate our internal state. Is the only thing that we can control. And way too often do we give our power to people around us and things around us, and then let that dictate how we show up. Anyways, I saw this reel, and it really hit me so hard because I needed to hear it that day, but it was so good. And it was like this 27-year-old creator who was, I guess, recording himself like a documentary as he builds his business. And he was recording an older, I'm assuming, entrepreneur who said something to the effect of, you don't ask yourself if it's the right choice. You make the choice, and then you make it the best choice you've ever made. It's not, is it the right choice? Is it the wrong choice? You make the choice, and you make it the best choice you've ever made. And that just hit me so hard because for the most part, I make decisions really fast. But there are some times and there are some things in my life where a decision has a big impact on my life, on my business, and I dwell on it. And I become afraid of making the wrong decision, the quote wrong decision, and I lose trust in myself. And I start questioning and it takes up so much mental bandwidth for me to play out the scenarios, and then I end up in paralysis. And this doesn't happen to me often, but it does happen to me sometimes. And I have been facing that in a few ways in my life. And so when I heard that, I was like, that is so good. You all need to hear that, because if there is no right or wrong choice, right? And you're weighing a decision and you make the decision that you believe right now is the best decision you could make. You get quiet, you tune in, you make that decision. You go all in and you make that decision, and then you make it the right choice. And you can absolutely do that. He said, make it the best choice you've ever made. And I freaking loved it. So I had to share it on here, because if you're sitting with any type of a decision, it could be big or small, and you've been weighing it back and forth. Should I move? Should I start this business? Should I make this pivot? Should I shut this thing down? Should I leave this relationship? Should I end this friendship that's weighing on me? Whatever. Those big decisions that are hard. They're hard to make because they have big impact, and sometimes they have impact on other people around you too. You have to tune into your body, choose the decision that feels the most at ease and peace, and then you make it the best decision you ever made, because there is no right or wrong decision. There's just a period of several decisions that come together that get you, where you want to go. And it also got me thinking, I don't regret any decision that I've ever made. I really don't. I also don't regret anything that has happened that I thought I wouldn't want to have happen in my life. Things that have fallen apart, or things that have, become my reality but weren't the plan. I haven't ever regretted it. But yet, for some reason, sometimes I think I will. I weigh decisions and I'm so afraid of looking back and regretting something. It's you can't if you have that perspective. So it's very freeing. And then it's okay, what decision have you not made? What decision is still weighing on you? And how can you make it the best decision you ever made? You make the choice, you commit, and you move forward. And that's so freeing. With that, I also was thinking about this concept of the buffalo. Do you guys know that a buffalo goes right into a storm? Because it knows that if it goes into the storm, it'll get through it quicker. Whereas if it like avoids the storm, it stays in this face of the storm that's probably cold or whatever, not as good for longer. And that's also a great concept of like how often do we avoid the storm, not make a choice, not take an action because we're trying to avoid a storm that's inevitable probably at least at some point. And what would happen if you just went right into the storm head first, knowing it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a little bit, but then you get to the other side faster and then you become a different person on that other side. So just two good thoughts that I have had in my mind of what's the decisions I need to make that I've allowed too much space in my mental capacity that I can just make ASAP like right now and then make them the best decision I ever made. And then what are the storms that I'm avoiding that I can just go head on into, trusting I'll always know. I'll always know. If you can't have regrets, if that's how you live, like I cannot have a regret. I know that it either got me to where I needed to be or was the choice I needed to make. What are we so afraid of? All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.